What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to White Sox Daily. I'm Aaron Feely, featuring a special guest appearance today from a bit of a cold that has been festering in my sinuses somewhere. So that's probably going to make its way into the audio here on this particular episode. But hey, what can you do? Got a couple of news tidbits to break down for you here for the Chicago White Sox. We'll just go ahead and jump right into it. First of all, you see right there at the bottom of the screen, one of the big trades announced earlier on this week. The White Sox acquiring Jordan Hicks and David Sandlin from the Boston Red Sox in exchange for Gage Zeal. It brings a big-time reliever to the Chicago White Sox, of course, and then a prospect that they're hoping to really mold into a potential starter down the line for them, maybe in another year or two, or even down the line further than that, depending on how some of the other prospective starting pitchers kind of work out for Chicago in the meantime. But we are seeing now that the full clause have been kind of brought to light at this point, that it will also feature 3 players to be named later. Both clubs will have until August 1st to identify and send the players over that are to be involved in the deal. It is 2 players from Boston coming to Chicago, 1 player from Chicago to Boston. It's kind of interesting because it's a trade clause that is not actually that common in Major League Baseball to this point, yet it feels like one that is used as like the punchline of a gag in pretty much every sort of joke you might make with your buddies or on a sitcom or anything like that. That, yeah, we sent you here for a player to be named later. And yet, here we have one that's potentially going to be the final kind of interesting touch on the Hicks trade. Officially, if both teams are unable to identify the players to be named later by August 1st, it could nullify the trade altogether, which would be an interesting extra wrinkle to be added into this, because at that point the players would have been already playing for several months. So one can only assume that that means that it nullifies that aspect, the players to be named later aspect. But according to MLB's official website, that's not really specified. So, yeah, we can use our common sense on that one, but it's still a little bit funny to read into the verbiage and the phrasing that they use on MLB's website as far as how they handle trades in their official rulebook on players to be named later, and just kind of crack your jokes about it, because the trade to be nullified if they're not named by August 1st. Okay, so, we've been using Hicks now for 5 months. Do we just send him back? But yeah, so more to be coming here for the White Sox in that trade. They're going to be getting 2 more players from the prospect pool, you'd imagine, from the Boston Red Sox come at the latest, the beginning of August, so stay tuned to see the full details of that as they are made known. Another bit of news around the Chicago White Sox coming to light here is an ex-player recently announcing his retirement after a bit of an underwhelming stint in Miami, as the Chicago White Sox former All-Star outfielder Avisail Garcia announced his retirement at the age of 34 after a 3-year stint in Miami where he didn't really put up what they were hoping he was going to. He was an all-star back in 2017 for Chicago. Really, 4 years after they acquired him from the trade, made a lot of White Sox fans really hopeful for what the future could hold for Garcia, a guy that hit 330 that season, was looking like he was going to be a real superstar for the White Sox at just 24 years old at that point. And then ultimately had a bit of a disappointing 2019. They ended up trading him, and in 2018 he actually took a bit of a step back as far as his average, his OPS, though he did end up with more home runs, hitting 19 that season. They ended up trading him to the Tampa Bay Rays, hit 20 home runs that season, landed him a 2-year contract with Milwaukee, where he had a bit of a disappointing first year, but then had a 29 home run season right after that. That netted him a 4-year contract with Miami, whereas we just talked about, things kind of took a turn for the worse. Didn't end up playing all that often, was hurt quite a bit. Just 13 home runs over 3 seasons with Miami. Didn't even end up playing during 2025. And then he ended up calling it a career here this season. So, we could choose to remember him for the disappointing ending to the career, what it was in Miami, or we could choose to remember that all-star season in 2017, the 19 home runs in 2018, as an ex-Chicago White Sox player, one that gave White Sox fans a lot of fun there in that 2017 season. Calls it a career. Hope nothing but the best of him in his post-baseball career. He makes the third White Sox outfielder to have called it wraps this offseason, as Michael A. Taylor and Travis Jankowski also retiring from their playing careers earlier on in the offseason, both of them making the transition to coaching. No word as of yet about Garcia and that aspect, but wish him all the best. That moves us right into yet another Chicago White Sox player and a bit of news surrounding his career developments, as the Chicago White Sox lost one of the key pieces of the Dylan Cease trade, as Hero Iriarte, one of the key prospects they got from the San Diego Padres in that trade, ended up being designated for assignment yesterday. Hiro, a guy that made his big league debut in 2024, was actually fairly decent in 2024 in the limited amount of reps he was able to get from the White Sox. Then he went down to AAA, played throughout the rest of that 24 season and into 2025, and ended up having some serious struggles there. The main struggles weren't necessarily to do with his talent or his stuff or anything like that. He's a guy that continues to showcase a high level of upside and talent. The problem to this point has been the walk rate. He hasn't been able to fix it. And in fact, it's gotten a little bit worse with each passing season. His ERA was actually still perfectly fine in 2024, to a 3.71 across 126 innings pitched down in Double-A. But then in 48 innings in 2025, he ended up with 37 walks and allowing just 38 earned runs. Not necessarily abysmal as a bullpen guy. It's certainly not good, but not, utterly awful as far as the runs are concerned. But the walk rate continuing to get worse. The 299 batting average allowed ended up putting him on the developmental list in the middle of that season, as the White Sox sent him down to Arizona to hopefully iron out some of the kinks. But then with the acquisitions of Jordan Hicks and David Sandlin, who we've continued to talk about, they just had to make space on the roster, and they just didn't feel like his progress was at a point where they felt comfortable using a roster spot on him. They felt perfectly content to send him out there into the mercy of the waiver system. Now, if he clears waivers and no one else signs him, no one else takes a big swing on his upside, then they're able to designate him down to the minor leagues outright, and that would probably be the best case scenario. He's only 24 years old. He continued to try to work on some of the natural gifts that he has and iron out some of those walk problems that he has. But yeah, the White Sox leaving him up to the mercy of the waivers right now, and it's a little bit sad considering if he is picked up by another team, it'll leave just 2 Chicago White Sox left that they received in that Dylan Cease trade. And when you consider that you gave away a guy the caliber of Dylan Cease, you'd like to think that you got a slightly better return out of it than it looks like they have been getting. And then that will cap things off here with a final bit of news for the Chicago White Sox. Speaking of returns on investment, the Chicago White Sox already getting a little bit of value out of their big-time signing in Murakami, as Mooney ended up coming over from the Nippon Professional Baseball League in Japan. And we are getting some word here, a bit of a bit of a more lighthearted bit of news, but already making some adjustments to the Chicago White Sox locker room as they hope to make him feel slightly more at home. Murakami said one thing that immediately stood out that he did notice. They did not have a bidet in the locker room, something that was standard over in the Japanese leagues. A bit of a cultural difference there, of course, but the White Sox went right to work. They installed a new bidet into the bathroom, so all right, anything to make the new signing feel more at home. Something slightly less booty related that they were able to partake of as well as another thing that he thought that the White Sox could use was another bit of tech upgrade. This time for the batting practice facilities that they've got there in Chicago, looking at a traject machine, which kind of replicates a pitcher's windup before throwing the practice pitches a little bit better, which he says they use almost exclusively over in the Nippon Professional Baseball League. And now the White Sox have included some of those in their batting cages as well. So some tech upgrades already coming into place for the Chicago White Sox thanks to Murakami. Hopefully they also get some big-time play out of his bat this coming season. So how about that? The Chicago Cubs still peeing into a trough up there in Wrigley. The Chicago White Sox got the new Booty Blaster Cleanser 9000 installed into the facility this coming season. Great news all around. But that'll do it for today's episode. I've been Aaron Feely once again. We'll see you guys tomorrow.